Okay, so we're going to do a little Facebook Live tasting tonight, and we're going to do it on the Côtes du Rhône. So with us tonight, we have Pier-Alexis Soulière, who needs no introduction to CAPS members or sommeliers around North America. He's our reigning Best Sommelier of Canada, and will be representing us at the Best Sommelier World Competition in Paris, France. So let's talk a little bit about Côtes du Rhône. We have an educated audience watching, so maybe instead of, we all know what Côtes du Rhône is, but maybe have you seen anything evolution of Côtes du Rhône over the last few years? Or what is when someone says to you, what is Côtes du Rhône? What does it mean to you, whether technically or just spiritually, in your soul, when you hear the word Côtes du Rhône? What does it mean?
Well, I'm going to be honest with you, Mark. I studied in the Rhône Valley. I studied at Suze-la-Rousse, and it was my first encounter with wine. It always stick with me, and I always say to my guests and my client and my colleague, if you don't know what to order Côtes du Rhône. Why is that? Because you're guaranteed to have a delicious wine coming from most of the time the south of the Rhône. Got a little bit of body, a little bit of spiciness, and lots of drinkability. You find yourself in bistro in Paris, in a restaurant in London, or in a restaurant here in Halifax. You don't know what to order. Côtes du Rhône is your go-to. And you know what have changed in Côtes du Rhône? I think there's a lot of young producers that are now taking charge of their estate and changing things in the north like in the south. But realistically, if we take the first wine, the Cité des Dauphins,
It's huge.
The label have changed.
Yes.
You know, I remember this bottle to have its own form. Now it's a little bit more actual white wine. You know, I remember not that long ago, this is a wine that's got an amazing price point. It's the day-to-day wine, simple wine. You don't need to think about it. It's super floral, a little bit of honeysuckle, a little bit of apricot and peaches, and just a simple style of wine. And I know some professional didn't think that this wine was a great wine for a long time, but to be honest, I'm always a fan of Cité des Dauphins as a simple wine, party wine, large audience wine, and it pleases people.
Yeah, and so if we broadly say what you expect if you look for a signature or something that says to you, what is Côtes du Rhône Blanc for me, and what should I expect?
I think most Côtes du Rhône has a little bit of this kind of yellowish flower, the stone fruit character, a little bit of almond paste into the mouthfeel, this kind of bitterness, but they're versatile, and they're just delicious style of white wine, and the Cité des Dauphins white is no different into that case. Now, when you're going into the cru, you have a little bit more personality, but some people are not into too much acidity when it comes down to white wine, and I think Côtes du Rhône could be a great alternative.
Do you think anything we'll see in the change of cepage? Like, will we see more Claret or other grape varieties that are a little more heat resistant as we go through, do you think?
Yeah, that's an interesting possibility. I mean, to be honest, I think that in the future you will see more and more of the white Rhône because they have a certain personality. Now, what's going to be the blend there? It's going to be up to people that replant the vineyard and those younger generation to decide so, and they will be really dictating the tone there.
So another style of wine that probably we're going to see change is rosé, and obviously increasing in popularity around the world. So, and what do we see, about 15, and don't quote me, 15-ish% of production now in the Rhône is rosé.
No, you're absolutely right. I think that, this is a great example of what rosé can deliver. Twist cap, very actual label, pale rosé, a wink to certainly Provence. Those rosé are just quaffable, easy to drink, and without a question, great food and wine pairing. And I love to have those with olives at the beginning of the meal, even sun-dried tomato, kind of bruschetta as an aperitif. They're delicious, and I think when you think about rosé, Rhône should be on your radar. Not only for the Tavel, but for those more simpler Côtes du Rhône rosé.
So moving into the red. So we have 3 here, 1 from a larger producer, Louis Bernard, and 2 from smaller houses. So that probably speaks back to what you said before in terms of this evolution of younger winemakers that perhaps had fathers delivering their grapes to the mothers delivering their grapes to the co-op, seeing more explore. So are we seeing too, are you seeing any stylistic change? Are you seeing more people experiment with how they make the wine, not even just making wine, but less, are they making more, let's say, non-interventionist or
Well, I mean, the reality is that this is a trend, right? And it's happening everywhere, and it's happening in the export market. So it's kind of less interventionist or less sulfite or more natural style of winemaking is there. And Rhone is a great place for it because it's a dry climate, especially in the southern tip of it. But those style of wine are exactly what I grew up with going into Suze-la-Rousse. Like wine that has some body, has some feel, has some sun, have some complexity, but at the same time have some drinkability. And I think that they are very versatile with food. They bring you some ripeness to the nose, but at the same time this nice feel on the palate. And just speaking of the one that I have in front of me, I have some biodynamic, some organic wine. So I mean, this is certainly part of the conversation.
So we have three wines in front of us. So we have, I think it's called Maison Xavier Essentiel, furthest over. And then Domaine La Florent, which is a smaller producer based in Visson, and then the Louis Bernard. So maybe just walk us through these three wines.
Well, they all have a point in common, and it's generosity. I think it's brought by the climate. You always have this kind of tone of kirsch, kind of cherry there, and a little bit of sun-dried tomatoes, and this kind of herbs or lavender or garrigue kind of character, and pepper. And they are blended wines, so they bring a lot of aromas to the mix, but at the same time they're not necessarily complicated one. And I think this is a good thing. We need simple, easy to drink, delicious wine. If we take the first one, which is La Cuvée Louis, for me it's almost like that earthiness that you don't feel a lot in Côtes du Rhône, but it's also has this kind of opulent fruit to it and spiciness. They say 15% alcohol, but it's not tasting like so. Delicious, easy to drink, not too much tannin. Delicious Côtes du Rhône, and I think Côtes du Rhône is one of those red wine that can go as much as red meat and white meat. Roast chicken on a wine like this on a Saturday afternoon with a little bit of those grilled zucchini, grilled bell pepper, onion, spring onion. This is simple dish.
Yeah,
wine.
do you think in some ways sometimes we forget about the simple pleasure of wine, and sometimes we try to at times overanalyze, and sometimes it's the wines like this that give us a feeling and a comfort level.
Yeah, I mean, I think, at the end of the day, wine should be a consumable product, and not overthinking it. And those wines are exactly hitting the target of delicious wine, probably a great price point. They got personality, they got a sense of place, and they can be enjoyed with a huge area of food. Fleur de Pompe, I think it's got a little bit more personality, or maybe a little bit more Syrah, or I don't know, there's a spiciness into the wine that is very important. I think those wine often goes great with black olive dish, so you can think about a braised beef with some olives in it, like they call it daube over there, but rosemary, thyme, use those aromatic herbs that you find into the wine to use into the dish. And the last one, L'Essentiel, it's a different vintage, we're in 2019. And it's got this kind of earthiness to it. It's interesting. And it's got also this meatiness. I think one thing that we often overlook with those wines is that, yes, they are wine from the south, but they also have a lot of drinkability. And at the beginning of the meal, serve a little fresh with nice charcuterie, nice pâté, nice French baguette, a little bit of cheese. They can be very, very versatile wine because they are a huge crowd pleaser. They got potential, they got extraction, they got taste, but also they are very versatile, which is the most important thing here.
Amazing. So closing words. Thanks very much, Pier-Alexis, for doing this tasting, and
Enjoy Côtes du Rhône during the summer. I think it's when I think about barbecue and grilling vegetable and meat and having a simple late night dinner, I often think about Côtes du Rhône, and most important thing, temperature control. Serve them fresh.
perfect. All right. Well, thanks, Pier-Alexis, and we'll see you guys soon on another Facebook.
Thank you
Cheers.
very much.